I distinctly remember a moment when I was sat down with a friend who knew me when I worked in a job in London, and I'd left a pretty secure job for a marketing and advertising agency to pursue my own business. And we were sat down having lunch, and he said to me, "Matt, how's it going? How do you feel? What's it like running your own business?" And although it had been a good 3 or 4 years, the money was good, we had some decent clients, I remember this distinct feeling. And the way I described it to him at the time was, I feel like I've left a job with one boss to start my own business where I now have 20. And I remember this feeling like everybody was just vying for my attention, and I was kind of building somebody else's business. Everything was just kind of happening by default. The harder I worked for my clients, the less of the lifestyle I wanted I actually got. And it all kind of came to a head for me until I decided I was no longer going to work in that way. And it was actually when I read something in a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, where he talks about this concept of the new rich. And he talks a lot about lifestyle design. And so I got obsessed with this concept of lifestyle design. And it's really this concept that we need to design the life we want first and then build a business to support that. And myself, and I think what a lot of agency owners do, is this business just kind of gets built by default. It gets built because we're good at a particular skill. Clients start to pay us. More clients pay us, so we bring on a team. And before we know it, we've got this business. And oftentimes we can look at the business and think, hold on a minute, maybe I'm not even paying myself as much as I would pay myself in the equivalent job. Why am I working these nights and these weekends? Why have I got this pressure of this whole team on me rather than just being able to switch off 9 to 5 and not worry about, whether I can afford to pay the team this month or whatever it is? And really, there's actually a simple solution to this, which is about being conscious of the business that you're building. So in this session, I want to take you behind the scenes. This is actually one of the trainings that we did for our clients a few months ago. And this is something that we revisit at the start of every year, and sometimes even more than that, sometimes quarterly, where we're just checking in and we're really thinking about, like, what is the life that we want to build? How do we want to be spending our time? What does an ideal week look like? And then what are the mechanics? What are the strategies? And what is the business that I need to build in order to have that? In order to earn that amount of money, in order to work that many hours, in order to work with these kind of clients or travel to these places. So design our life first and then build our business to support it. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. I hope you enjoy. Cool. Let's talk about this today, lifestyle design. So the question that we've got to ask ourselves, right, is our business currently being built by default or by design? So default is the opposite of what you just said, right? Unintentional. Things are just happening. Clients are just coming in, projects here, projects there. We're generally spending most of our time building somebody else's business. That's what I would class as by default. By design is sitting down and intentionally thinking, like you guys have said, where do I want to spend my time? How much money do I want to earn? What kind of projects do I want to be working on? And actively creating that so we can make a conscious choice when things show up in our life, whether we say yes to them or no to them. Because if we don't have a clear direction, if we don't know what we're building, then it's very difficult to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. So default feels kind of like this. And this is something that unfortunately I've experienced way too much in kind of previous businesses. Leaving a job and being like, hey, I'm going to start my own business. And then starting your own business and feeling like instead of having one boss, you now have multiple bosses. So we don't want to feel like we've got multiple bosses. We definitely don't want to be working long hours. So Matthias said, I actually want to sleep. I actually want to take some time off. So when we talk about time off, we're not just talking about evenings and weekends, we're talking about extended periods of time. By default, I've found tends to have like quite low impact. So when I say low impact, what I'm talking about is, are you actually building something that you're going to be proud of in the next 10 years? Are you actually solving problems for people, or are you just delivering services?
ultimately the worst part of building things by default is you just get stuck in this business and it feels more like you have a job than a business. When we're building things by design, we only have one boss, which is us, right? We can actually be intentional with how we spend our time. We can design our own hours, right? And when we say taking time off, I would say minimum, when you design your business properly and you design what's called a lifestyle business, you should actually be able to take 6 weeks holiday a year minimum. And you should be able to come back and your business is still running and things are still good. And ultimately we can have the maximum impact because we are actually focused on solving a problem and we're actually passionate about what we do, and therefore we're doing the kind of work that we really, really want, and that is scalable and that's maintainable. So that's what happens when we design things rather than by default. So let's just zoom out for a second and let's look at these three concepts. When we talk about creative life, you've heard me talk about this before. Adam says, what is holiday? Yeah. We're looking at these three things. We're looking at these kind of three areas. It doesn't like it when I zoom in on this. We're looking at freedom. We're looking at fulfillment. And we're looking at financial security. If we want more freedom, which kind of lives in this bucket, it's still there. It's like a little magic trick. We need to have a model, a business model, that we can deliver our services in a way that's scalable. Because if we are constantly trading time for money, then we don't have any freedom. We're attached to our business. If we want fulfillment, then we have to have a business that's differentiated, right? Because fulfillment ultimately comes from doing the kind of work that you want to be doing, feeling like you're actually having an impact, feeling like the work that you're doing matters. And that isn't really possible if you just feel like you're being compared to every other business or every other agency that's out there. And if we want finance, we want financial stability, we have to be able to consistently communicate the value of what we do to our ideal clients, right? So that's essentially the three parts of creative life and the three strategies that we look at: communicate, differentiate, deliver. And if you do those well, what you get is freedom, finance, and fulfillment. So hopefully that makes sense as a concept because you've heard it before. Today, I'd like to zoom in on this. I'd like to look at the finance element of things. I'd like to look at what does a financially creative life look for you? What does a financial number look like for you that would allow you to be your most creative self? That would allow you to have an abundance of money. Not just financially secure, but financially abundant. Okay, so there's three big ideas that I want to share with you. If we're going to nail the financial side of things, there's three key concepts that we have to embed in our minds, embed in our psyche, and really get right. The first one is that you get what you tolerate. What I mean by this is, how many of you have ever had a unexpected tax bill or some kind of unexpected bill that's come in that was above what you were planning for that month, or that was above what you earn, and somehow you found a way to pay that bill? Either like a new client's come in, or you've managed to get some invoices paid before, like you've scrambled around and you managed to get that bill paid. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that you have the ability to generate that level of income that was required for you in that month. The thing is, your thermostat is currently lower than that, i.e., you tolerate the current level of income that you have. When that unexpected bill came, you didn't tolerate it anymore because you were like, I have to pay this because whatever, the tax man's going to come and knock at my door, or I'm going to have to let this person go, or whatever the consequence of not paying was. And so you raised your level of tolerance. It was forced to be raised higher. right? You wouldn't tolerate not paying your taxes. You wouldn't tolerate firing that person. You wouldn't tolerate whatever the consequence was, not paying your rent. So you raised your thermostat. So the big idea is that you get what you tolerate. And so if we know that, it's actually really simple. We just have to trick our brains into tolerating no less than whatever that number is. We have to trick our brains into saying, I will not tolerate less than a personal income of 7,000 a month, 10,000 a month, 15,000 a month, whatever it is. The problem is most of us are okay with not earning that money. So we don't get it. So you get what you tolerate. Makes sense? Big idea number one. Big idea number two is that we want to design our rich life. Most of us don't actually have a compelling vision for our rich life because essentially there is a gap. There is either like rich or not. Like how many of you ever think about really rich people and all of a sudden your brain jumps to Ferraris and yachts and all of like crazy expensive hotels? Just show of hands, how many of you that happens for you in your mind? Yeah. So there's like no middle ground in our mind, and our mind goes, that's not us, right? We are not that type of person. So we don't actually think about what that looks like. But if we actually sit down on paper and design what we actually want, like if we won the lottery tomorrow or we had unlimited finances, like what would we be doing? What does that rich life look for us? It might be totally different from that idea that we've got in our head. And what I hope today, by the end of today, you'll find is that it's actually a lot more achievable than you might think. Right? So we actually want to actively design our rich life, because if we don't design it, then it's going to get built by default. It's going to get built by what we tolerate. And then we're simply just going to reverse engineer. So we're going to take that number, our rich life, and we're going to reverse engineer it. So we set some really clear, tangible goals and really clear, tangible metrics that we can follow that's actually going to make that rich life a reality. So now we actually need to do the work, right? We need to figure this out. And it all starts with this. What do you want? Now notice I didn't say, what do you think is possible? Because these are two very different questions. What do you want versus what do you think is possible are two very different questions. So if we're going to design our rich life, we need to make sure we're focusing on what we actually want. And then it's our job together to figure out how we're going to get there. Don't worry about that bit just yet. Okay? So here's the exercise that we're going to do. I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock. So it's going to take us to 1:30. And I want you to have a think about these questions. In an ideal world, so thinking money is no object, right? You've got an abundance of finances. In an ideal world, where are you living? Like, what is your house like? What car are you driving? How many holidays a year are you taking? What kind of experiences are you having regularly, right? Are you flying business class to places, for example? Maybe that's something that you would do. Is there like a personal development course that you've wanted to do for a while? Maybe there's like an MBA or something that you've wanted to do. What would you add to your life if you had total financial abundance? Here's what I love about this exercise is that you just did an exercise where I said, imagine that you're financially abundant, you can have whatever you want, and you wrote down all the things that you want, and the highest monthly income we got was 25K. So to live like a millionaire, you literally need $25,000 a month. In your lifetime, if you think about it, if you played this game of business right, do you think it would be possible to get to $25,000 a month income? Right? Actually, if we put a plan together, super achievable. So to live like a millionaire, you don't actually need £1 million. All the things that you want right now are a few good decisions away from being a reality. There are a few sales conversations away. There are a few partnerships away from being a reality.
Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it valuable, I'm only going to ask you one thing. That's please hit the subscribe button. We put a lot of time, effort, and energy into these videos, and it would mean the world to me if I had you as a subscriber. Until next time, see you soon.